And we are live. This is the Chickenfoot Podcast. My name is Judah Buddha. I'm here with Arthur Spooner, a.k.a. Arthur Spooner.
Well, first we'll start off saying that Judah has been sick.
Yeah.
And so he's not all there today. So
I'm a
he's
little
slow on the uptake. I don't know what's going on.
But I'm here. I'm glad to be back on the podcast.
Yeah, that's why we couldn't podcast last week, right? You were feeling down, out of the weather. But there is good news.
I was totally out of the weather. Yeah.
Yeah, out of the weather. So under the weather. And the good news, though, is I found another sponsor for our show.
Oh, thank
God,
kind of
help, some of the funding and help some of the costs to make the show. This week is sponsored by Whitey Tidies. Right? Now, Judah, let me ask you, what product can you buy that stops you from shitting your pants, but also smushes your sweaty junk against your body? Whitey Tidies. The only product to do both of those things. So whenever you're in need of those things, please support our sponsor and wear and buy Whitey Tidies.
I do not endorse that product. That's so gross. I'll tell you a story. I got a story. So, I grew up in Quebec, Canada, which you would think that Canada is pretty much just poor man's America, but Quebec is like a completely different beast to itself. And so in Quebec, everybody speaks French. And they have a completely different culture than the rest of Canada, and they have a French culture. But it's not France, it's just like a Quebec culture. Everybody smokes. Everybody's their swear words are nothing like you'd ever hear. The worst swear word you could say is tabernacle. That makes people anyways, so but one of the worst revelations of my poor young soul growing up in Quebec, Canada was that all the older adults hang around their house in their underwear. So when I started when I came of age, when I went over there, I was 2. But when I was about the age to start going over to my friend's house and hanging out with them, to my horror, all their fat and weird looking parents were in their bras, panties, and the dads were in their whitey tidies constantly, man. Balls of swinging whitey tidies. It still scars my psyche to this day. Just to I would go and they would answer the door. I'd be and they'd open the door. What do you want? And boop, just a little carrot poking out of the whitey tidies. It was. To this day, it sort of scares me to go over to somebody's house.
Well, you know what? It's funny. That reminds me of a story as well. When I was a little kid, my dad, because, I'm a military brat, Judah says gross.
Judah says gross.
No, Rico says gross. When I was a military brat, so my dad, we were stationed in, I want to say Massachusetts. And so my dad just happened to be working really long hours. I mean, he was in the Army, so he was working very long hours. And I was very young, And one night I had wet the bed, and I went in, and I woke up my dad. I was like, Dad, I wet the bed. And my dad is exhausted because he's just working 16-hour days, and stuff. And so he's dragging himself out of bed, and he doesn't want to turn on the lights because he doesn't want to wake himself up. So he's, the dim light in the hallway is enough to kind of, and he's making the bed, and then he's trying to get me new underwear, and he gets me new underwear, and he get me a t-shirt, because we basically slept in underwear and t-shirt.
Yeah.
And he's giving me a t-shirt, and I'm like, Dad. He's like, just put it on. You know, he's tired. He wants to go back to bed.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, and I put it on, and I go to bed. Then my dad wakes up the next morning, and he comes to the kitchen. He sees me sitting at the kitchen table,
Yeah.
you know, with a t-shirt on as underwear, with one leg through the arm and the other leg through the neck hole, holding it up. And he's like, well, Joseph, what are you doing here? And I was like, Dad, I told you, but you just told me to put it on. He kept yelling at me. You just put it on. I was like, all
right. That's hilarious. Yeah. Well, I mean, growing up, I didn't know anybody. I mean, not only did I see most people, you know, in Quebec in their whitey ties. I mean, I'd never heard of boxers. I didn't hear boxers till I was like senior in college. I mean, senior in high school, actually. So, yeah, growing up, like whenever we had a sleepover or anything, I always just slept in my whitey tidies.
Yeah, no. I outside of kid, I mean, are there grown adults who? Well, obviously, if you're in Quebec, which is our big fan base who are sponsoring us this week, then you love whitey tidies. But outside of that, I don't know who. Actually, I was watching The Joker. It came out, and he's in whitey tidies. I'm like, gross.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know, it's
I think whitey tidies is sort of a normal thing for anybody over our age. I mean, I don't think anybody wore boxers before the 90s.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. Well, boxers weren't invented till the 90s. Ninja Turtles.
Oh, get out of here.
That one was for Rico. All right. So we always open with the joke, and I got a doozy.
You got a humdinger?
Humdinger. Now, why does Waldo wear stripes?
I don't know.
Because he doesn't want to get spotted. That is our jokes. All right.
We need sound effects.
Well, I will say, Judah, that I've been reading online, and there's a lot of buzz going on online saying that our podcast isn't funny, that our stories aren't as good. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of feeling bad that I started spreading those rumors. But I'll take it back. I take it back right now. So,
all right. Padrino Rico says yes! ! Or no, just yes, all in capitals. So, I guess I got nothing. Okay, yeah. So what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about things we think are overrated, or a lot of other people think are funny, but you might not think it's funny, or things that other people don't think is funny and you think is hilarious.
Okay.
So I'll go first. Okay. This one is we already talked about before, The Big Bang Theory, so I'm not going to really address that one, but you and I both don't like that one, but you and I don't really like that one. But the other one, this one is going to lose our one viewer. And that's Saturday Night Live. Every once in a while, there will be a sketch that I'll like. And usually the actors and the sketches, while they're on Saturday Night Live, I really don't like. It'll be like when they leave, then I'll like them. But it's like Adam Sandler. I didn't like him at all on Saturday Night Live. any of the original cast on Saturday Night Live, except for Eddie Murphy. He was the only one that I enjoyed.
It's the only one I didn't enjoy.
And then I didn't like Will Ferrell. I didn't like anybody really. And even now, I still really don't like many sketches. So it's every once in a blue moon they'll have a sketch that will be funny. And I only can name like a few on my hand. You know, the Patrick Swayze with Chris Farley dancing.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we did lose our viewer.
There you go. Thanks a lot, man.
It'll bring him back my whitey tighties. and that one, and then there's one with The Rock, and he's a wrestler. He's playing. Okay. They're doing wrestler promo. Have you ever seen that one?
Yeah.
Where and then he's like, "Oh man, just go for it," and he really dig into me, and he's like, "This guy, he's got herpes." like he gets really personal. So let me hear.
What? He says, I like their weekend update with Colin Jost and Michael Che. I haven't been following it. I saw them do like a funny thing where they had they did it was this really awkward but funny bit on some show. I think it was, I can't remember, but where they did a lie detector. They each had to ask each other questions while on a lie detector, and that was interesting. Because if you start asking like some pretty personal questions, you could get some interesting results.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want me to go next?
Yeah, you go next.
So an underrated. So I'm going underrated. Okay.
Okay.
So my underrated, let me share my screen, I guess. I don't know why I'm doing this, but my underrated thing is a potato.
What?
I think a potato is like an underrated thing that not enough comedians use as, like, I think a potato is extremely funny.
Really? Like, what is an example? Who's using a potato as a joke? Like,
that's the thing. It's underrated. Not enough people are using potatoes.
Well, but how do you get that as an idea as a joke? Like, where did this come from?
I think it's because I watch these YouTubers, MXR Plays, and the girl, she's Korean, and they call her the potato because she kind of has this round and brown face, and she kind of looks like a potato.
Mr. Potato Head?
Yeah. But to me, there's something hilarious about a potato. Just the way it's like, it doesn't fit into any like category. As far as, okay, I'm sure it's, like it's in the category of tuber, but we think of it as a vegetable. It's round and bumpy.
A lot of range available.
Yes.
Vodka.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things you can get out of it. It's like one of the most versatile things to eat. So there's a lot of like comedy as far as My People the Irish, and potatoes. There's all kinds
racist
things you can do with it. It's just one of the best comedic vegetable type things out there. The potato.
Rico said, "Put the potato inside your tiny whiteys."
I mean, just that image alone. Just imagine a potato in tiny whiteys. That's hilarious.
You are saying they're underrated. I think it's appropriately rated. I think it's appropriately rated. All right. My next one for overrated is anime. Oh my goodness.
Overrated?
I don't know if you ever seen anime, but I can't stand it. I mean, people will watch it from Pokemon to anything. It all is just like so dumb. I can't watch it. It's so cringy. That's the best word for it, is cringy. You got little girls screaming and yelling about something, and then you'll have like it'll be a world where everything's normal, and then one guy has a real live heart as a head. And you're like, what is this? This is one weird character, and everybody's like acting like this is a normal person. Like, yeah. I don't understand. To me, it is like, it's cringy. It's not funny at all, but people love it. Anime has a resurgence these days.
Yeah, that's true. I love it. I won't say I love it. I do think it gets a little overrated, particularly in a certain group of people, which is, it's kind of the new nerdy, whereas like it used to be real nerdy and sort of outcast to like comic books. Now comic books are all the rage, but I think you could say the anime is the new, form of that. What used to be comic book, but now I think it's more anime, right? Wouldn't you say?
When talking to anime fans, pronounce it
meme. Eh?
Well, when I was growing up, people used to call it Japanimation.
Japanimation?
Yeah. I just last week I decided to watch The Drunken Master, Jackie Chan. In the 70s.
Yeah.
After watching The Drunken Master, I see where anime gets its style of humor. Because if you watch that, you'll see anime like kind of pulls the same types of humor, but it kind of goes to the extreme.
Well, have you ever seen what's that one, Shaolin Soccer or whatever?
Mm-mm.
It's this one movie maker, Dave Volkner loves him, where it's over the top comedy, and I think it's called Shaolin Soccer.
Never heard of it.
He did a more recent one. I can't remember what it was. Anyways, okay. We want to hear another underrated for me. We have kind of got a theme going here.
Don't tell me a rock. Is it a rock?
No, it's Bobby Lee, man. I think Bobby Lee is an underrated, not so much comedian, but podcaster. I really enjoy his podcast.
Really?
I've always, so when he was on, what's it called?
Mad TV.
When he was on Mad TV, I did not like him. He was my least favorite. His comedy has really grown on me, and his podcasts, I find him a really endearing and sort of just all around likable guy. And he has
really
all my favorite those guys, Joe Rogan types that come on, and I love how he can take a lot of punishment. Like, he will talk about things and people will say the worst things about him. He'll be like, oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Well, I've seen a few of them. I'm not a huge fan of his, and I will have to disagree with you on this one too. I think he's appropriately rated. But I've heard his podcast, and he's had a rough upbringing.
Yeah.
And so that's why he could take the beating, because no one's going to say anything worse than what hasn't already heard and been through. So, and he was kind of in the middle of the whole Joe Rogan, Mencia thing.
Yeah, because he was with Mencia at the time.
Yeah, Mencia was stealing all these jokes from real comedians and using them on a show and using them in stand-up. And Joe Rogan was just saying, you're plagiarizing. And nobody was standing up to him because at the time he was huge.
Right.
So, all right. So we're in our last 10 minutes.
Okay. Last 10 minutes. We're done?
Do you have any stories that you can think of?
Any stories? No.
All right.
You don't have any more underrated or overrated, huh? Or we're just done with that?
No, we're
move on.
Last
move
10
on.
minutes. Last
All
10
right,
minutes,
last
always
10
stories.
minutes.
Stories are always better.
Stories are better.
Right.
So let's see.
So I got 2 stories. So if you don't have a story, then
I don't
got
have a story. Up. You always have the stories.
All right. Did I ever tell you the story of I was pursuing this girl and she ended things to date a homeless guy?
What?
Did I ever tell you that story?
I don't think I've ever heard that one.
So I was in seminary at the time. I was living in Mississippi. Judah was living here in Chicago. And I worked at a transitional home as a manager overnight. And
I remember that.
The seminary wasn't very big. And it's mostly guys, right? Mm. Well, after during my second year, 3 or 4 women started attending school there, right? Okay. And I mean, it was just like everybody was on them, you know what I mean? And so, but there was this one girl where we had gone out on several dates. We'd gone on several double dates, yada, yada, yada. And then she's just like, you know what? I just don't feel like this is really going where I wanted and stuff. And I was like, all right, you know, I mean, it is what it is. You can't, there's no chemistry. I can't force you. I mean, it's against the law. And so I was like, you know, it is what it is, you know? So maybe a couple days go by and I go to work. So when I work from 8 p.m. to like 8 a.m.
Okay.
Or maybe it was like 6 p.m. or something to 6 a.m. And so I go in and most of the people who work there also are students at seminary. So the school's so small that everybody knows that I was like pursuing this girl and we had gone out on several dates and stuff. And so I come into work and there are several of my friends who were there sitting there and we're sitting there talking, and in comes one of the residents who's this really tall guy, just obese. There's no way around. He was obese, kind of slobby, and he was holding hands with this girl. They were like interlocking hands. It wasn't just like they were interlocking hands. And he walks in. He's like, all right, I'll see you later. And she's like, all right. And she gives him a hug and walks out. And I was like, and then he just walks around the front desk and goes back. And I was like, and then everybody was behind me. And when I turned back to look at my friends, they just died laughing. It was like, because everybody knew that it ended. And I was kind of disappointed. But now everybody knew that, you know what? She left me to date a homeless guy. I was like, literally, my self-esteem had gone down it went down river. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is not real. This can't be real. Wow. I just didn't understand. And then within a month, she dropped out of school, and her and this guy moved somewhere. I was like, I don't know what happened. I was like, maybe I should move in there. Maybe I should become homeless. I probably have a better chance.
Wow, that's astounding.
Yeah,
I mean, like, you know, homeless people date too.
Yeah, I guess. I always thought it was for money.
Well, I got a joke.
All right.
Let me see if I can remember it. Okay, so I started to date this girl, and it works out really well. She's homeless. And the reason I really like dating her is because when we're done, you know, with the date, I just drop her off anywhere.
I have to give that one a Cupid upon on that one.
But it's kind of like that. Maybe she liked the fact that, you know, when they were done with their date.
Maybe. All right, so I got another story.
Okay.
This one's kind of unrelated to that one. All right.
Okay.
So I had just joined the Navy, and I enlisted in the Navy right after high school, and I moved to Florida.
Okay.
And I was looking for a church. So I went to this church, and it seemed really hip. Everyone's wearing jeans and like t-shirts and stuff, and people got all kinds of cool music and stuff like that. Those kind of churches.
Hipster church.
Yeah. So it looks that way, but it's traditionally, like behaviorally, it's the opposite. It's a very, very strict.
Okay.
So like I remember we went to Bible study, and this guy came in like a couple minutes late, and the pastor just stopped in the middle and just called him out and was like, "Hey, well, you're late. Why are you late?" And the guy was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir." And everyone had to call him sir. And then he didn't have a pen, and the pastor was like, "You didn't know you were coming." And I was like, "Man, like this was like really." So, well, they decided to go door to door witnessing, and I had never done that before.
Okay.
And so they have those, tracks where you hand it out and then saying, "Oh, you're going to hell, but if you love Jesus, they won't hell you," or something.
They won't hell you.
So I back then I was really shy, and I've never done this. And going door to door, my parents knew I was doing this. I would be embarrassed, right? So we're going. So basically, everyone split up into groups of two, because that's how they did it in the Bible. So, I go with this person. This guy has done it every weekend forever. I don't know. Okay. So we went, and he's basically leading the charge, and he lets me kind of jump in, and I kind of trying to get my feet wet. And so we go to the next door, and he says, "Look, you just take over. This is the only way you're really going to get over it, is you just got to do it on your own." Okay. Right. And so
trial by fire.
Yeah. So I just, we're knocking and ring the doorbell, and then you could see through the glass. There's like kind of like like a thin veneer curtain-y kind of thing, and you can see the cat shoot upstairs, and the dog is running up to the door barking, and bird in the background going rah, 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 like yelling and stuff. So and the lady comes to the door, and she's got all this going on, and she's kind of cracking it, and and then I start in the spiel, and she's like, I don't know if this is, and so my friend's like, he told me earlier, he's like, get into like small talking. And so I was like, man, you got a lot of animals. I mean, birds and everything. And she goes, I don't have a bird. And then I look into the living room, the dining room, which is like crooked. And her son was like mentally handicapped, and he was just yelling, like, and I was so embarrassed. I was just like standing there like, what? Like, and so the lady, the look on her face was like, this is not funny. Get out of my house. And I was like, it couldn't go any worse. Like, it was like, I was like, oh my goodness. Because I was like, oh, it's like a zoo in here with animals and everything. Oh, your bird. And she's like, I don't have a bird. And then I just look over, and just dead right in front of me is this. You can tell that they were like mentally handicapped, and he's just yelling, rah, rah. And I was like, I was like, I'm never doing this again. This is well deserved. I should never be doing this in the first place. And now I was totally humiliated. I was like, oh my God.
Oh man.
And the guy was no sympathy. The guy was laughing.
The guy you were with?
Yeah, he thought it was hilarious.
Oh man. I've been in situations like that where I've made a mistake, and it's just, there's no recovering. It's just like, well, see ya. All right. Well, we're pretty much out of time. It's been another excellent adventure with, my name is Judah Buddha, and I'm here with
Arthur Spooner.
And we're signing out.
32 Skidoo.
Zappa Zoo.